Welcome to Positive Conversations. My name is Dr. Pam Denton, and I created this and realized that people were walking away from this system with inspiration and an aha and a feeling of, wow, I feel different inside of myself. It's a very specific formula that you'll experience here today at the Move and Flow studio. Lisa is going to be sharing her story, and in that story, there will be reflection, meaning you may hear something inside of Lisa's story that makes you feel something different inside of yourself. So then we'll go into a regulation exercise because this is all about dumping the stress and stepping into our positive energy so that we can be positive channels in this highly chaotic, crazy world that we're living in right now. Lisa and I met at a leadership conference about 2 years ago, and she went through an in person 2-day retreat with me and my team. And she got to experience what stress regulation really means in your life. She had already been studying it. She's an amazing physical therapist. She specializes in spinal and pain management as well as pelvic floor therapy. So she comes with years of experience helping people navigate through pain and tension in their life. So Lisa and I connected. She went through my training and now leads in the corporate space as well as at our Move and Flow studio. So what you'll get to experience here is an introduction to what we are all about, which is the positive energy on this planet. This is about sharing positive energy on the planet right now as we go through these challenges that are helping us grow as humans.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for supporting me. I am feeling your love. My heart is just so full of gratitude. And as I was thinking on this story, I was thinking about how our body talks to us. And have you ever noticed that sometimes our body talks to us in whispers? That those little signs that you can hear, it's like maybe it's fatigue, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's digestive issues, maybe it's, sleep issues, but something is happening in your body. And you may have even gone to a physician and you're like having multiple lab tests, but everything comes out negative, and they're saying nothing's wrong with you, but you're like, wait, there's something happening in my body. I don't feel like myself. And it has started with these little whispers. Or maybe you feel like you're just too busy, things are too urgent or in a rush that you haven't even stopped to listen and to notice these little whisperings of your body throughout the years. I was 45 and my body was screaming. I hadn't paid attention to the little whispers, or maybe I was starting to notice them, but I didn't know how to get out of it. Mornings were the worst. I dreaded mornings. I had a dear friend, and this has stuck with me for years and years. And she said, Lisa, it's a full time job getting out of bed. And I already have a full time job. And I dreaded it because of the joint stiffness, the pain, the swollen joints, and I felt like I was in a deconditioned 80-year-old body in my mid-40s, asking myself, "How did I get here?" Because I thought I was one of the healthiest persons. I mean, I embraced my identity was in athletics. My body, I was eating healthy, I was eating organic, I was being very concerned about what I put in my body, what I put out, and I was dreading the lab results. But with a sinking heart, knowing that everything was gonna be positive, and sure enough, all my inflammation markers were skyrocketed off the charts, my RA factor was positive, and I just felt so depleted and so defeated. And I was thinking, and I felt like I wasn't given any long-term solutions, sustaining solutions. And so what I do, and this is me, this is part of my personality, I dove in deep and I thought, this is going to be the beginning of my healing journey. And I went full in. I started learning about gut health because it was just starting to come out, the importance of your gut microbiome. The other thing that I did, I was starting to learn about inflammatory foods and noticing that I was gluten sensitive. And so I started looking at that. And then I'm like, I saw I could also become a gluten free practitioner. So I dove into that and became a gluten free practitioner. And as I was studying pain neuroscience for my chronic pain patients, they said that physical therapists are perfect for lifestyle medicine practitioners. So let's go ahead and take a lifestyle medicine practitioner course. But what I loved about this, and this has really helped me embrace my healing journey, was that there was pillars of health, diet, and nutrition. What did I need to change on that to aid me to start feeling better? They talked about sleep, the importance of getting into the 4 stages of sleep. They talked about movement and joyful movement, and that wasn't difficult because I I was a physical therapist, I was an athlete, I loved movement. And they talked about gratitude journal, some type of meditative practice. And then they also talked about one pillar was stress and how do you manage stress? And at that time, I felt like it was very elementary in the sense is like, oh, I had a gratitude journal, I had a meditative practice, and I knew about breathing. So that was kind of my introduction into, in addition to the pain neuroscience, I was learning about the two systems of the nervous system, your sympathetic dominant, that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and then the parasympathetic, your rest, digest. But I felt like I didn't really understand it. I was starting to have the language, but I didn't have the tools or techniques. So, needless to say, with my lifestyle medicine, I really got to a good place with my health. I was feeling like I was reclaiming my health. I felt more vibrant. The fatigue was dropping off. But then something happened in my life. I decided to open up my own practice. At the same time, my parents' health started failing and they were coming to the end stages of their life. And that stress of running, caregiving, feeling like I was in that sandwich community where I still had children at home, running to events, trying to take care of patients, trying to keep my health, you know, stable, and then being available for my parents. And I could feel with that dread, like I was gonna go into RA flare. And it almost panicked me because I had worked for 10 years and I thought I had healed myself and all these symptoms were coming back. And this was at the same time I had gone to a women's leadership conference. And as Dr. Pam said, guess who was the speaker? And Dr. Pam had said, and it still sits with me, is what kind of leader, what kind of wife, mother, daughter, friend, what kind of relationships could you have if your nervous system was regulated? And I went, wow. And as did reflective journaling and different exercises, I came to realize that my go to emotion, that my automatic response was overwhelm. I even told myself, I'm overwhelmed. I have too much on my plate. I can't handle this. I don't have the capacity. I'm also a people pleaser and a helper. And so that means I am very good at reading a room, taking care of everybody's emotional and physical needs at the expense of my own well being and health. And I knew if I'm going to get through these next few years helping my parents, I needed to do something different because I hadn't changed. I mean, my diet was good, my exercise was good. I mean, I knew my triggers, and always said throughout the years, it's diet, it's lack of sleep, and it's increased stress. And my stress was rocketing again. So I'm going to look back at my story through the lens of stress and what really influenced me. So again, you know, all the pillars of health are important, but let's see what stress. I was recently at a physical therapy conference, and a PT and DO coming out of Europe, out of France, wrote a book, is that we live in a society, in a world of epidemic stress proportions, and we know the negative effects of stress on our mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health. And this has given me tools and techniques to do is to regulate it. So when I look back on my life, and I really can see now how stress influenced my life choices and even started to influence my identity. Now, I didn't call it stress at that time, right? What do we call it? We call it drive. We call it achievement. We call it discipline. And that was my motto. And one of the most first defining moment when I look back on this was in 10th grade. And I was a high achiever, and I was in a math class, and I got my first B, and I was devastated. And so interesting. I remember my teacher in 10th grade, he almost gloated over me and said, he was like really proud of himself that he had made the test so hard that, I got a B, and that he didn't, that he was able to give me the A. So this have been a passing comment for him and not realizing, but for me, it was crushing. I had not lived up to the expectations, those external expectations I had put on myself. And from that moment, I had started a belief system that if you want to be better, you just work harder. If you want to achieve more, you push through. If you want that approval, you keep doing and achieving. And I remember going home to my mom and crying on her lap. And she's like, Lisa, you know, it's 10th grade geometry. You have to let it go. You have to be, this is the word that sticks with me, more flexible. And I had already had started some rigid patterns. And so what I took with me is that if I wanted better grades, I just studied harder. If I wanted better athletic performance, I pushed my body. I trained harder. If I wanted more approval, I achieved more. And this led me into really endurance sports. So I started triathlons, did ski marathons, and even our vacations became, hiking in the Canadian Rockies and the American Rockies. We would do canoe trips into the Boundary Waters. So what I could do more miles, climb higher heights. We'd go to Finland and we'd ski 30 to 50K days. And I loved that feeling of pushing my body, of pushing it to its limits. And what we then did, another defining moment was in 1996. We had an amazing one in a lifetime opportunity to travel to India. And functional medicine was just kind of starting to come out, and we didn't call it functional medicine or integrative medicine or alternative medicine at the time. And there was a book by Dr. Andrew Weil, 8 weeks to optimal health. And during this time where I could really And this thing okay, we were going on a 21-day Himalayan trek. So let's really pump out the miles and really climb the heights. So, but in the downtime, I was reading this book and I was almost having this visceral, like this punch in my stomach, like, how am I gonna go back to the States? Not because I didn't love my life or I didn't love my country, but the chapter I was reading was about slowing down, taking news fast, the importance of being quiet and still. And I knew when I went back, I was just gonna go right back into my busy, rushed, crazy, rushing lifestyle. And like I said earlier, I didn't know how to get off. I didn't know how to slow down because I had been training my body, my nervous system for years to keep going, to keep pushing, to keep achieving. And when we did come back, and we were taking a lot of classes in Arizona for continuing education, I remember writing in my journal, I feel like one of those dry riverbeds in Arizona, and I was living in lush Minnesota, where land of 10,000 lakes. And so when I look back, what were those little whispers at the time? For sure, I had acne as a teenager, so that meant that I was starting to probably having some digestive issues. As I was coming into my 20s, I was starting to have constipation. As I started having a lot of swallowing issues. I was doing tons of throat and swallowing studies only to find out I had so much tightness in my neck. And I started having, the symptoms were getting a little bit louder. I was starting to have chronic kidney infections, not even urinary tract infections. It went right to the kidneys. And then when we came back from India, again, those symptoms were getting a little bit louder, a little bit louder. We decided to start a family. And guess what? Doesn't help pushing, trying harder, achieving. That does not help with getting pregnant. So it seems like the more we push and more we did, it didn't happen. And day after day turned into year after year. And we started the emotional roller coaster of fertility treatments. And this is fascinating too. Our doctor looked at me and he said, "You are wound so tight." And I'm like, "What does that even mean? Like, me? What?" I thought it was pretty normal, but that was just so telling at that time. And then it was shortly after that, as I was approaching my 40s, where the symptoms got really loud. The swollen joints, the crushing fatigue. I would call it, I'm beyond exhausted. It was my sick exhaustion. I would have pain behind my eye. And that was, really, like I said, at the beginning of my healing story. So, what I want you to realize is that I like the analogy of our bodies as a truck. And we all have a capacity, right? Let's say our capacity, our load capacity, our max load capacity is 8,000 pounds. How many of us are operating at our max capacity where we do not allow any room for life's, curveballs? We don't allow for grief, for sadness, for illness, for taking care of elderly parents. We are at that max. So if you imagine that max semi truck going down a mountainside and all of a sudden the brakes go, we do not allow for that. Or We have the max, everything's piled up on it, the truck, on our bodies, and all of a sudden there's a windstorm and we are going through twists and turns of life. What can that do? It can really upset, disrupt, overturn. And so we don't have the agency. We don't have the margin, the capacity, because we are always running at max. So what do we need to do? And this is what I have found is that we need to pause. So going down a highway, and this is talking about speed distortion, how our modern life, we are busy, we are hurrying, everything is urgent. And so when you go down the highway, let's say the speed limit is 65 and you're pushing 70, you're pushing 75, you're pushing 80, like, okay, can we get to 82? And you see a highway patrol and you're like, quick, come back down to 65. What does that feel like? Okay, it's supposed to be normal, but you're feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm crawling. I'll never get to my destination because I'm going so slow. But really, that is the normal speed we should be going. Now imagine you go down this highway, but this time you see a coffee shop and you're like, oh, I'm going to stop. I'm going to get a lovely coffee or tea, and I might even meet a friend. I might talk and have a good conversation. You get back into the car and you go 65 and it feels normal. So that is the key, the pause, the stop, so that you can see how fast you are going. So I want to bring you into an exercise that brings us out of sympathetic dominant, that fight, that freeze, that fleeing into that parasympathetic mode where we rest, digest, and heal. And one thing that I've been thinking about is that, it's not that we want to be in parasympathetic state all the time, but our parasympathetic nervous system is the check and balance on our sympathetic dominant state that gets stuck 24/7. And this is the one thing that I want you to take away is that in order to heal, to have wellness, to really flourish, is that we have to be in a different state that made our body tense and stressed and unwell and at dis-ease. So I want to do a little experiment with you. I'm going to have you take a deep breath in and hold it just for a second. So everyone, just deep breath in and pause and just be aware, what did your throat, what did your shoulders do? Where did you breathe up into your neck and up towards your ears? Now, I want you to imagine an upside down balloon. When we breathe shallow and bringing our shoulders up to our ears, and I see this with my patients, it is a very sympathetic dominant state. That means we're in a stressed state. We take up to 22,000 breaths a day. So you can imagine if we're breathing shallow, what that does to our neck, our shoulders, our throat, our nervous system. So imagine an upside down balloon going down into your chest, down into your abdomen. And as you inhale this time, I want you to breathe down into your chest, down into your belly, but just not in the front, 360 degrees. And then as you exhale, let that balloon deflate. So get that into your imagination. And I want to do a little bit more. So I invite you to get comfortable in your seat, to settle in, feet flat on the floor, hands on your lap, and let's pause to be still. I love this acronym of the pause. Pause to be present, to breathe slowly. Aware of your breath, of where you hold the tension and stress, to be aware of your automatic patterns of responses, and aware that there's a possibility for new choices. U and S is unwind the stress, and E is so we can engage positively. So press your feet firmly into the floor. Feel the floor. Press a little bit further, like you're going to go past the floor, and start noticing the tension rise the back of your legs. Press a little bit further down into the floor, and then release the pressure slowly, slowly. Press your feet firmly into the floor, feeling that tension rise. Press a little bit further. One more time. Squeeze the gluteal muscles, feeling that tension, feeling that pressure. Release the pressure slowly, slowly, like a little pressure release valve, softening the body. Press your feet firmly into the floor, grounding, having your brain say, hey, pay attention. I see you stress. I see you tension. I feel the pressure. Press a little bit further, squeezing the glutes, giving a little counter pressure with your hands pressing down, down, down into your thighs, and then release the pressure. Release and soften the body slowly, slowly, slowly. Press your feet, squeeze the glutes, press your hands down, draw the shoulders up, squeeze the face. Sometimes we just need to acknowledge and feel the tension, the pressure, so that we can release and relax and let it go, softening the body. Let's add our breath. Inhale as you press your feet down. Exhale, release through the mouth. Inhale, press in through the nose. And exhale through your mouth and release. Inhale, press. Exhale, release. Inhale, press your feet. And as you inhale, draw the shoulders up towards your ears. Exhale, release and soften the shoulders. Inhale, press as you lift the shoulders. Exhale, release. Inhale, press, shoulders lift. And exhale, release. And then sometimes we just need to shake that tension off. So, like you touched a hot stove, just shake that tension off. Good. And then come back to stillness. Connect to your breath. Sitting up a little bit taller, shoulder blades down and back, chin slightly tucked as if you had an orange. Drawing that imagination of that upside down balloon, filling and expanding that balloon down into the chest, down into the belly, back, side, rib cage. Exhale, deflate the balloon. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Noticing the softening, the shifting. Already the breath may feel more expansive, having more awareness. Continue to connect with your breath. Let's grab our stress and tension. So pull it in towards your body like you're holding dice and start shaking that dice. And again, say, I see you, tension. I feel you, tension. And let's shake that tension and that stress. Build up the pressure, shake it. And you may even notice you're getting a little bounce. Feel that vibration in your biceps, in your shoulders. Can the shoulders come down and back? Maybe feeling a little wiggle and wobble in the neck. And we're just shaking that tension because we do not want stored tension and stress in our body. And roll the dice, shake it off like you touched a hot stove, shake it off. And you may know that, oh, wait, my shoulders are feeling a little bit looser, but that tension's still there. Grab onto it like you have the dice roll. Let's shake it, build it up. Good. Feel the bounce, feel the oscillation. We feel that tension building up, and whatever you want to call it, stress, tension, anxiety, build build it up because we are going to release it when the body says, I cannot hold it and store it anymore. Release it and shake it off. Good. And you can feel it a little bit more vigorous. It's like, oh, my shoulders. It just feels so good to release it and not hold it. Good. We have one more round. Grab that tension and the stress. It's feeling lighter. I can feel it in my body. I'm getting some energy. I'm feeling my heart rate coming. Good. We're going to release it, build it up, keep shaking it, and release it. Woo! Like you touch that hot stove. I even feel like I might want to kick it off, like kick it off, shake it off your body. We don't want that negative energy. Good. And then just come to stillness. Connect to that breath. Long, slow, deep breaths down into the chest. Expand that balloon. Can you get the side ribs? Can you get front and back? Shoulders stay level. Getting the oxygen exhaling through your mouth. Now, after we release negativity, let's think about one thing that can shift our energy and our mood. Sometimes it's too far to go to, like joy, like a really high vibrational. So if you just need to start somewhere, you can start with gratitude, appreciation, kindness, anything. And I want you to grab that word and see it, put it in your mind's eye. And you're holding gratitude, appreciation. We're still doing the dice roll, but now we've changed it to the positive. And we want to fill every single cell, every single particle of our being with this good vibrational moment. So take a deep breath in, hold it at the top for 5, 4, 3, and spread it to the world. So shake it. Good. Let's put it out in the world and then come back to ready stance. Breathing in through your nose, noticing the shift. You might even notice like you have a smile on your face now. Shoulders are a little bit more relaxed. That even if it's one shift towards the positive, feeling a little better in your body. I am ready. I am ready to let go of stress and tension from my body. I am ready. Mm, let's grab it, grab the dice, shake it just a little more gentle this time and say, I am willing. to let go of resistance, of stress and tension. I am willing to make those positive changes for good. And then one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. I am able to see a new way, a new choice, a new way of living. I breathe that in and then putting your hands straight up towards the ceiling, reaching up. Press your feet so that you're still grounded and you're still connected. I am worthy. I am worthy to feel good in this body. I am worthy to speak my truth. I am worthy to be seen and heard and loved. I worthy. Keep pressing, reach, press a little bit further, reach a little higher, shoulders stay down and back, and then crossing your hands into safety shield. I am safe in this community, this room today. I am safe in my body. Feel that. Let it sink in. We're going to do one more breath, putting your hands on your lap so that this is the direct breath for the vagal nerve. It's a vagal nerve breath. It's going to be 3 vigorous sniffs in through your nose, all one continuous breath, pausing at the top, exhaling through your mouth as if you're in a fog of the mirror. We're going to do 3 rounds. Ready, set, sniff, in, pause, fog the mirror for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready, set, sniff, in, pause, fog the mirror for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ready, set, sniff, in, pause, fog the mirror, slow it down for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rubbing your thighs, rubbing your hands, coming back to this present moment, clapping 3 times, always in celebration that you celebrated, that you took this time for yourself. If you need to give yourself another little love, go ahead and do that. And coming back to the room.